Hello everyone, thank you for being here. I'm going to be talking about the philosophy of testing with Cypress. My name is Faduma. I'm a software engineer at Condé Nast International, and I'm trying to be better at testing. And you can follow me at Faduma Faralacag on Twitter. So these are things I'm going to be talking about today. So I'm going to be talking about why testing is important, the challenges with testing, and how Cypress helped us. So to begin with, why is testing important? Testing is like eating healthy. We understand it's important, right? But most of the time, it's super confusing. You get all these weird pyramids where you're just like, I don't know what this means, similar to like a food pyramid. How am I supposed to implement this in my life? Just eat pizza. That is a good idea. And there's lots of divisive opinions about, testing. You get these inflammatory remarks like, integration tests are a scam, they're like a virus, they're gonna ruin your life. You get statements like, unit testing is a waste. It's really easy to get lost in the debate. It's really hard to figure out what kind of testing you need to do. So what I'm proposing is to get back to remembering why we need tests. It's because we build software for people to use, right? We need to ensure that our software that we give to people is actually working and is not broken. And testing gives you confidence. It gives you power to know that your application is not broken. So when you send it off to, the big wide world, you know that it's not going to fail and, explode on someone. So different testing strategies gives you different levels of confidence. So if you remember this pyramid that I showed briefly, what is this pyramid? What is it trying to say? And it's talking about the amount of testing, right? Like it's talking about, but not about the importance of each test. So I'm going to take a different tact. I'm going to talk about the levels of confidence each sort of testing gives you. So what confidence level does unit test give you? So what is a unit test? Unit tests test like functions and make sure that each function works. For example, if you had a lipstick application, perhaps, that sort of showed all your lipsticks that you owned. So these are sort of functions that will enable this lipstick page. So you have to get the user, get user's lipstick, order the lipstick in the different colors, and then show the lipstick on the page. And you would have unit tests for each one of those, right? You would have unit tests for that function, etc. And they would look something similar to this, where you would say should return a user, etc., etc., etc. So what you're doing is testing each unit of code is working and ensuring that it works as it should. So what's great about unit testing? It gives you fast feedback. Like when you're writing your code, you can write your test and you know that that function that you created works as it should do. And this is especially the case when you do test-driven development, where you actually write the test beforehand and then you have to make it pass and go in the cycle of making your test pass. Okay, so it helps. One benefit with unit tests is that it helps actually structure your code better. It allows you to actually separate your code into smaller little bits. But, are you actually confident that your application works? Are you sure? If you send it to to a user, are you sure that it's not going to break? If you're not, each unit test tests each function in your code base works, but what it doesn't do is test the combination of those functions. So if you're still not confident, maybe integration test may be for you. So what kind of confidence level does integration test give you? Integration tests are sort of testing a feature or a slice or combination of things working together. So if you remember our lipstick application, it would be checking this slice of functionality. So a test might look like this. It might be should show list of lipstick. And when you're doing this test, what you're testing for is that when you get a user and you get a user's lipstick and you order it by color and then you show it on the page, something actually appears. So you're testing the collaboration of different parts of your application. So now you're confident about like different features working together. I think integration test is like the most important test, and I'm going to talk a little bit about this later on, but it's one of the hardest tests to implement. There's other testing strategies like end-to-end tests, contract tests, smoke tests, etc. I'm going to talk about end-to-end tests later on as well, but what I want you to keep asking yourself is, are you confident your application is not broken? Like a balanced diet, the balance of what kind of tests you do really depends on your application. You have the power to determine the strategy that works for you. It's not a one-size-fits-all strategy. You have to figure out what testing strategy works for you, and keep asking yourself, am I confident my application works? And if unit tests don't do it for you, then integration tests, and if integration tests don't fit that confidence level, then add some other sort of testing strategy and really interrogate your application. So we know testing is important, right? But there's challenges with testing. Like not everyone does it in a thorough way. So a real life example. Like I said, I work for Condé Nast, and we own major brands like Vogue, and I built the Vogue website. So this is the Vogue website that we built. I did this, I helped. And we have different sort of testing strategies like suite. So we have unit tests, integration tests, and some end-to-end tests. So I think unit tests are like the most accessible tests, right? So I came from a bootcamp background, and I learned unit testing when I was learning how to code, and it was something that I was doing all the time. And most of the time, it's because the accessibility comes from the fact that it's really easy to set up. Like when you're using React, setting up Jest is really easy, and then you can start testing straight away. And same goes for Mocha, which actually works for other languages as well. But end-to-end and integration tests and other tests that require like a browser, it's really hard. And because of the apps and libraries that we use to test, to implement those tests. So with end-to-end tests, at like Vogue, at Condé Nast, when we were building Vogue website, we used to use Browserstack for our end-to-end testing. And what is Browserstack? Browserstack is an application that allows you to test things on different devices' browsers. And these are the problems we had. It didn't really go smoothly. So the first problem is that it ran super slow, like really slow. This is an actual snapshot of one end-to-end test running. It took almost half an hour. And this is brutal. This is like, really it makes it hard for you to ship things and to continue iterating on your, things that you're working on. And they were super flaky. So they would sort of fail for no particular reason, and you would rerun it again and it would pass. And you're like, I'm confused. Like, why did you pass now and you didn't pass before? What are you trying to say to me, Browserstack? They're really hard to debug. It's because you haven't got access to the browser console, so you have to rely on stack traces to debug. And it's hard to figure out what's actually broken. So what's the point of this test? Like, you're not actually telling me anything. I can't fix anything because I can't figure out what's the issue. And personally, this is like the biggest issue for me, is that I couldn't test locally. Because Browserstack uses actual devices and the browsers in those devices, you have to like send it off to Browserstack land, and then it has to do its thing and like spin off devices and then get a browser and etc. So you couldn't actually, work on your actual local machine. And the effect of that is that you would get stuck in a queue because everybody else was doing that, and your Circle CI was doing that too, and you get stuck in behind someone, or you would, God forbid, stop a Circle CI build, a test happening. And maybe if we did like better parallel testing with Browserstack, maybe that could have like alleviated that issue, but it's really expensive. It's really expensive. So it's really hard to add new tests to that requires a browser into your workflow. So when you build a feature or a page, it's hard to like create a new test that required a Browserstack, a test on Browserstack. You don't have to actually have power to decide what kind of test you needed. Like, it kind of took that away from you. So, come to the last bit. Like, how did Cypress help? Like, what is Cypress? So, in their words, Cypress is an open source front-end testing tool built for the modern web. And it allows basically in-browser testing. So how did it help us? First of all, it's super quick to set up. You basically npm install it, and when your installation is done, you can run the Cypress command, Cypress open or Cypress run, and if you don't have a Cypress folder already existing in your repository, what it does, it scaffolds you a new one, and you can get started really quickly. This is this Electron little helper desktop thing where you can test specific applications. You also can run it on the terminal as well for if you want to send it off to your CI. So yeah, it's really easy to set up. So what happened was that, writing integration tests became like writing unit tests. Because, Cypress uses Mocha-Chai. Mocha-Chai is something that I'm familiar with, and it's really easy to find out about like what sort of testing things you can do, sort of, assertions you can make. There's loads of tutorials, videos about Mocha-Chai. It's very accessible. So this test, what it's doing is, this is testing a to-do application where you're just getting the form, and then you're simulating, typing, and then you're making assertions against that. And then you can see in action, where this is like the Cypress dashboard, and you can see each event that's happening, like visiting your local host, and then getting the form, and then typing it, and etc. etc. So it's very clear. And what's great about Cypress is that you can sort of time travel each step, so you can go back to the step before and then see what was happening, what the browser was doing at that step. So it felt very similar to unit testing. So one other great thing about Cypress is that it runs really quickly because it does not use Selenium. So it's lightning fast. So instead of testing taking like half an hour, it can take minutes or like seconds now. And it's super easy to debug, so you can figure out if you have any problems, you can figure out what the issue is, because you have access to the console. So you can like interrogate these things, like there's an issue, but like, did I get the right class? What's going on here? You can go back and see what the issue is. And you can run the test locally. So this is a test of like our Vogue article page, and there's a bunch of tests going on. So we're like visiting an article, we're like checking see if there's a specific things on the page. We're actually redirecting to a new page and coming back, testing the error pages. So there's a whole bunch of tests that we're doing to give us a little more confidence that this article page, which is actually a very highly visited page, is working as it should. So with Cypress, because it's with the testing, you can create the test straight after you finish your creating your functions and then your feature. You can create your integration test, and you can have fast feedback like you would do for unit tests, because when you save your a file, Cypress test would run straight away, and then you can go back and forth and keep iterating on those testing. So it feels you can get when things go wrong, you can find out quite quite quickly. So you can add it to your workflow, like it's like a normal thing that you do. So you would like I said, when you finish your functions and their features, just do your integration test or acceptance test or your end-to-end test, and there's no stop gap. There's nothing like actually stopping you from actually doing those tests. But Cypress runs on just Chrome. Like, Faduma, what are you talking about? Like, Browserstack is amazing. It runs on a million devices, and Cypress only runs on one Chrome. Like, why are you advocating for this? But with Cypress, what we find personally is that we kept having to disable it because it would take forever to run, it would be really flaky, and then it would stop us from working. So we would have no tests. So what I find is that reliability and ease of use is much more important than actually, having your automated test on the specific browser stack. So cross-browser testing is really important, but there's other strategies to do that, and it shouldn't impede on you doing, your integration and acceptance tests. So now tests are actually created and updated. And Cypress didn't get in the way of us actually doing those tests. Like, it was a tool to we used to be able to empower us to continue doing things, and to actually be like, okay, actually I want to do maybe acceptance tests, maybe I want to do contract tests. It would be amazing if we figured out if this A worked better. And it gave you back your power to actually decide what's best for your application. Again, I'm Faduma, I'm a software engineer, and I'm trying to be better at testing. And you can follow me at Faduma Faralacag.